All right, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, A Time to Thrive Together, Second Step Out of School Time. I'm so glad that you are here. Today, we're going to take around an hour to talk about all the essential out of school time settings and what they play in youth development and research-based strategies that can support social emotional skills in youth and in those settings. So we'll also provide an in-depth look at the brand new program. So this is our second webinar introducing this brand new program. So we're very, very excited. It's almost giddy around our office thinking about launching this new program. What we're going to do today is just some quick introductions. We're going to talk about social emotional learning, or SEL, in out of school time, also known as OST settings. Of course, we're going to go through the program, the Second Step Out of School Time program, and the research and all of the things that went into that design and how it works. And then at the end, we are going to also talk about the reentry resources that we have for those of you, for everyone actually, that is going into this school year in a really different way than we have in the past, considering the COVID-19 pandemic and some racial injustice and things that are really top of mind right now. So we will touch on those resources that we have available and some next step for you if you want to explore the program. So we're definitely going to leave some time for question and answer. So be thinking of those along the way, put them in the chat box as we go, and then we can answer them at the end. So with that, I'd like to just introduce myself really quickly. My name is Jennifer Sanderlin. I'm a Senior Education Partnerships Manager with Committee for Children. What that means is that I get to work with schools and districts around the country, and my states that I cover are in the South. I get to work with schools and districts and nonprofit and other organizations that serve students in all settings, including out of school time. I get to help with their social emotional learning, bullying prevention, and child abuse prevention efforts, whether that's adopting a program, sustaining and building on those implementations, or working together to make sure staff are trained. It's a really exciting job I get to do, and I'm very grateful to do it to help these schools and districts and out of school time programs. I'm especially excited about this particular program because prior to doing this work, I've been here for about 7 years. But before this, for about 15 years, I was working in out-of-school time settings as a site leader, as a program director of many programs in a nonprofit here in the Seattle area. So it was my dream when I first came to Committee for Children that we would develop an out-of-school time program. And here we are. It just so warms my heart. So I know, it's been a few years that I've been in the field, but I and definitely can relate to the challenges and the opportunities that all of you have. So I really just want to take this time to say thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I know it's a busy time to learn more about what we're doing and the resources available to you. So with that, I get to pass it on to my very esteemed colleague, Dr. Tricia Moss, who is the lead research scientist on this particular project and has just a wealth of experience and expertise. And we're just so lucky to have you, Tricia, on the call with us today on the webinar. So if you'd like to just say hello, that'd be great.
Hello. Thank you. Jen's always amazing with her very kind introductions. And we are also lucky and grateful to have her and her wealth of knowledge just in-house. It's a great asset. So as Jen mentioned, I am the lead research scientist on the out-of-school time it was project, but now it exists. It's a real program. So what that's involved is doing research in a couple of different capacities. First, it was looking at the existing literature on social emotional learning, on what we know of out-of-school time settings, and making sure that everything that we were creating was really grounded in that research base. But then it was also conducting some original research on what we were creating and field testing some early versions of our activities, getting feedback from advisory groups, and synthesizing those data, translating it to the folks who are creating the content, and making sure that what we're creating not only is grounded in literature, but also meets the needs of those in the field today. So that's my role, and I'm happy to be here and chat more about the program, which has finally come to be a real thing.
It really is sort of like, I don't know I can't think of a metaphor, but where you're like growing a plant and it was a seed and now it's flourished. Let's go with that. Okay, so let's start with just a little group question. It would help us a lot, and we'd just really love to know, what is your role in out of school time? I know there's a variety of different roles that people play in this field, and we'd love to just know a little bit more about you. So if you would, just go ahead and put your role, whatever that may be, if you're a site leader or a facilitator, if you work with many sites, if you work with a school district, whatever that may be, if you could just put those in the chat box really quickly. I'll mention, if you don't know where the chat box is, that if you just hover on the bottom of your screen, you'll see all the different controls. And if you just click on the speech bubble, then you'll know, then the chat box will pop up. And it will be in the right-hand side in a panel along the side of the slide. So looks like we're getting some of those roles coming in. All right, so we have special ed teacher, lead preschool teacher, school psychologist, a mental health coordinator. Let's see who else. Pre-K lead teacher, site leader, facilitator, school counselor. Thank you for being here. Special education, instructional assistant. Got another couple of school counselors. This is great. I'm so excited to hear you and see you on here. Retired teacher now working with an after-school program. Wow, covers 7 schools. That's wonderful. Hi to you, Kevin. That's a big job. Let's see what else. Got a few more coming in. Great. Well, thank you so much for developmental kinder teacher. Okay, that sounds like a hard job too. I taught kindergarten way back in the day, and it's tough. Okay. Oh, I see a principal too. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Keep those coming in. We really do love to know who's with us today, and that way it kind of helps us make sure that we say the things that might be relevant for you as well when we can. All right, so just a little bit about us. Since we got to know you a little, now here's just a little bit about us. So thank you for sharing those roles. We are Committee for Children is a nonprofit. We are located in Seattle, Washington. So you can see behind me, it is a reasonably good day. It's not raining, and I think it's going to be about 70, so that's not bad. Our organization is based heavily and deeply in our mission, which is to foster the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning and development. It is what we do. It is what we believe in, and it's what we do. So what we are really pioneers in doing is leading the field with our comprehensive approach. So really bringing all the pieces together. And this is actually one of the pieces that I think makes us even more comprehensive when you're thinking about bringing social emotional learning to all settings for communities. We also really have deep connections with experts in the field to bring resources to schools and districts and nonprofit organizations in communities to make a difference in the lives of students and families. So lastly, we are also a leader in advocacy and in those efforts to pass policies and legislation to support SEL, bullying prevention, and child protection, both at the state and federal level. It looks like we're getting a few more of those chats coming in, and I see that we have some prevention specialists as well that have just joined. So that's an SEL coach. I always love to see that when we have SEL coaches or any title with the letters SEL for social emotional learning in them. So just as a plug for Committee for Children too on our advocacy, if you are interested in that kind of work, I just really recommend you go to our website, cfchildren.org. There are ways for you to very easily click into the policy and advocacy side of this work. So please join us. We would love for you to do that. And just a little, the history about us. Most of you have heard of our program, I'm sure. Second Step, hopefully you have. You may not have heard of Committee for Children, but we really do practice our motto that you see there, grow kinder. We believe in that, and we practice it in the ways that we can to support schools and districts and community-based organizations so that they can grow kinder too. Our programs reach more than 16.5 million children each year worldwide, and in all 50 states. We are incredibly proud to reach this many students, but we also know that we really couldn't do that without the educators, the teachers and counselors, principals, and others who deliver the programs each and every day, including some of you who may be using our current program in an out-of-school time setting and adapting that. So I just want to say a special thank you to you, but to everyone, to really make our efforts a reality. So we could not reach our mission without you. So a little bit about what we do, Committee for Children. We are best known for our program, Second Step. We do a few other different things, but Second Step is a suite of programs that represent a very holistic approach to building more supportive communities. So looking at every child through social emotional learning, through that lens of putting a child at the center of all the things that you do. So as you can see in this graphic, when you put the child in the center, it is really clear that sort of moving beyond the elementary school, the school day things, that we could really, as a natural next step to support social emotional needs. So that's why we're expanding into some new programs, including not only our out-of-school time program we're going to talk about today, but also a program, SEL for adults, that'll be coming in 2021, so very soon. And so I just wanted to point that out, that that's how we're expanding and adjusting and really trying to serve the needs of all students. Okay, so that is enough about us. Let's dive in a little bit just before we get to the program side of things and all of the research and really wonderful information that Tricia will share with us. I just want to make sure that before we start talking about SEL, social emotional learning, there's so many acronyms out there. I just want to make sure we're thinking about the same thing. That social emotional learning is the process of learning the social emotional skills that are essential for success in school, in work, and in life. And that, sounds like a tagline, but it is actually very, very true. On this slide, you can see that there are the 5 social emotional learning competencies, social emotional competencies that is based in the work by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, also known as CASEL. If you're not aware of CASEL, I definitely recommend that you go to their website. It's just casel.org. They have a ton of great research and things that might be of interest for you. Those 5 competencies you see are self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness and self-awareness. They really translate into some skills, understanding and managing emotions, setting, achieving positive goals, feeling and showing empathy for others, and establishing and maintaining positive relationships, very big emphasis, certainly in this program, and making responsible decisions, even in the face of peer pressure. So that's where we're coming from as a foundation, that if you're thinking about social emotional learning, this is what it means and this is what it looks like. Okay, so one more question that we would really like to kind of gather from you and just take a moment to kind of learn about your experiences with social emotional learning at your site so far, how you address the social emotional needs of kids as they transition from the classroom to your program. So what challenges do you face in supporting kids' social emotional learning at your site or sites? If you can just kind of think about that, put those in the chat box, some of those challenges. Can just be jot down a few of your thoughts, what those challenges might be. And as you're submitting your answers, I'd just like to share with you that the uniqueness of the out-of-school time environments is key to this development of our SEL program. So we know that it's not the same as school. We have a great appreciation for how before and after school programs and facilitators approach and support social emotional needs in their communities. I definitely don't have to tell you how truly transformative and special these programs can be for kids. And we spent a lot of time making sure that we honor that work. So as you look through and hear about the program, just know that we really care about how different the needs are and how special this opportunity is for students in your programs. So let's see what we have in the chat box as far as some of the challenges. One of the challenges is definitely going to probably ring true with everyone, and that is just the remote start to the school year, possibly the rest of the year, we don't know, and how to support that SEL when they're not in the classroom in person. Let's see, we also have, a challenge would be the lack of support from home to nurture those SEL skills and lack of adults having those skills in the home. A lot of times to be able to, model and teach their children. Trouble understanding nonverbal communication. That's a good one to think about as well. That in social emotional learning, a lot of what we do in our communication is not verbal. Getting children and helping those children who don't want to talk and have a hard time sharing. So that's difficult, definitely. The challenges are definitely that parental involvement and connection. Let's see. We've also, one person says they've been adapting the grade level classroom lessons for after school programs for many years. Thank you for that. And that a 50+ minute lesson just doesn't lend itself. So not having very much time sounds like one of those challenges that we could say is probably true for everyone. So it's really also wanting to make sure you have resources that fit within your format, that fit within your structure of your program. So timing is really important, and the types of choices that you have as well. So being able to, one of the challenges is also making sure the administration and the leaders are clear about making sure that allocating time for SEL is important. Again, some comments about the distance learning, reinforcing skills outside the programs, trying to figure out ways to help kids use the transfer that learning, and transitioning and teaching those new skills. And then also making sure staff and teachers are utilizing the SEL program or resources with fidelity, that they're actually using those and making sure that they're using them the way they're designed so that you can actually reach those outcomes that are possible when you do this kind of work. Okay, well, that looks great. I really appreciate all of those comments. We'll be taking all of this information actually with us as we kind of continue to fine tune and make sure that we have all the resources that might help for you as you do this work. I always say to people that if there's something you need to do this work better, please tell us, but ask us, because we probably have it or we can make it. So we love for you to tell us what it is that your challenges are and what might be better, what might make it easier for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to our presenter. Take it away, Tricia.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to see everyone, and thank you everyone for being so honest with those challenges. I say it's great not because, having those challenges is great, but it's great because those were many of the things that we were thinking about as we were designing the program. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the research behind the out-of-school time program. There is a substantial amount of research on how SEL programming benefits kids in both school and out-of-school settings. A review of studies that found that high-quality SEL programs in out-of-school settings improve children's self-perceptions, school bonding, social behaviors, grades, and school attendance. And they also decreased problem behaviors. So that's pretty compelling evidence, and it's a really high-quality study. Additionally, we know that kids benefit when we coordinate learning within communities. So there's research to suggest that SEL in out-of-school time settings can help support and reinforce SEL programming that many kids get in schools. That said, Second Step out of school time is designed to work regardless of whether kids use Second Step in school or not. But kids who use the Second Step elementary program in school will be exposed to common language and approaches across different parts of their day, and we know that that's really good for learning and skill development. So when kids use SEL in school and out of school settings, it can not only support learning in the ways that I've discussed, but it can also build a bridge between the classroom and the out of school time space, which then fosters adult collaboration related to SEL and beyond. This is something that we heard from some of the sites that we field tested in. We field tested earlier versions of this content in 4 different locations across the country, and within each of those systems, many sites. So we've gotten a lot of feedback, and something that we heard loud and clear is that this was just like a great way to build those relationships between school-based staff and out-of-school time staff. So really powerful in that way. We know that there's a lot of power in reinforcing SEL across environments, but you might be asking, how specifically does SEL fit into out-of-school time? So as many of you, particularly those working in out-of-school time environments currently, probably know, the field has had a long time focus on positive youth development and program quality. And this work lays a really helpful foundation for social-emotional learning. But intentional social-emotional learning takes this work a step further. It's structured and it's explicit, and it helps kids attach language to those concepts. It also helps kids draw connections between those concepts and their own life. So both of those approaches, the positive youth development and program quality structures that you may have been using for a while, and explicit SEL, both of those are important and complement one another. They're sometimes referred to as caught and taught. So you might be thinking, okay, we've been doing work around positive youth development and program quality for a while, and I'm interested now in SEL, but how can those approaches fit together coherently? And I mentioned field testing earlier. This is something that we heard very early on in our development process from field leaders. And I worked with Dave Martineau at the Weikert Center for Youth Program Quality to develop a framework to help answer that question. And this framework creates and presents a 3-tiered model for implementation that hopefully will help you see how all of the pieces fit together. So in this short video, we'll walk you through this model, and we'll hear from folks at a site we partnered with, again, when we field tested those activities.
So what does it mean to be more intentional? The answer can really vary for different OST programs depending on the type of site, size, and situation. But in any vision of intentional SEL, 3 components are key. It all starts with program quality. When OST programs invest in establishing a culture and climate that support positive youth development, it creates an environment that's foundational to fostering social-emotional competencies in both young people and adults. Secondly, SEL-focused professional learning plays a fundamental role in any strategy to adopt a more intentional approach to SEL.
It's hard to teach reading if you don't know how to read. It's hard to teach somebody how to ride a motorcycle if I don't know how to ride a motorcycle. So it's hard to teach somebody how to be self-aware and manage their emotions and name their emotions when they don't have some of those same skills for themselves.
Many OST programs create a culture where pro-social behavior is caught and encouraged. Adopting research-based SEL programming represents a step toward explicit support of social-emotional development. Research-based programming can provide the staff support, structured materials, and common language that make SEL consistent, effective, and intentional. It should incorporate 4 elements represented by the acronym SAFE: sequenced, active, focused, and explicit. When supported by program quality, well-prepared staff, and research-based programming, intentional SEL can effectively support young people's social-emotional development, leading to positive outcomes in school and in life.
Social-emotional learning is an investment in positive youth development. It is the foundational element, and to then be using those lessons throughout whatever activity it is you're doing, whether it's basketball or an art project, To me, that's the beauty, is that kids take this with them everywhere that they go. And if we as adults are trained in these same practices and we are taking it everywhere we go and in every single interaction, that's what changes our community.
You now understand our background and where we're coming from and the foundation we're building this on. So let's dig in and talk a little bit about the program. As you know, the program is a result of a multi-year research, testing, and development process, and we dedicated that time to development to make sure that the program really fits the specific needs of the out-of-school time space. The program is designed for youth in kindergarten through grade 5, and includes activities that use play, art, and games, and encourages creativity and really takes steps to empower and elevate youth voice and choice. The content is sequenced, focused on, and explicitly addresses SEL concepts, and it involves active learning. That's the A in the SAFE acronym you just heard about in the video. The program is designed to help kids develop social emotional competence by teaching them to appreciate diverse perspectives, approach problems with a growth mindset, identify and manage their own emotions, take others' perspectives, and be kind. The program aligns with and can be used in conjunction with second step kindergarten through grade 5 classroom kits, but it can also be used as a standalone SEL curriculum in many different out-of-school time environments, and we know that the out-of-school time space is pretty diverse. So the learning materials, now we're kind of getting down to the brass tacks, include 12 spiral-bound notebooks with a total of 147 activities that are designed to take about 20 minutes each. Activities are split into 3 grade bands, kindergarten through grade 1, grade 2 and 3, and grades 4 and 5, and include 4 units with the themes community building, growth mindset and goal setting, understanding emotions, and empathy and kindness. And those 4 units are the same across the grade bands, but obviously the content ages up with the kids. In addition to the content aging up with the kids, you'll see some of our illustrations here, which we just love, and the kids in the illustrations also age up as you move up the grade bands, which is just kind of fun. Designed to be taught sequentially, that's the S in the SAFE acronym you just heard about. Second step out of school time is adaptive and includes suggestions on how to adapt activities to fit various spaces, group sizes, age ranges, resources, cultures, and abilities. So again, we are very aware that this is a diverse space and have taken steps to build a program that is flexible to those different contexts. The activities use movement, arts, games, and challenges, while explicitly, that's the E in the SAFE acronym you just heard about, focusing on SEL competencies. Each unit ends with a show what you know activities, I should say, which provide kids opportunities to demonstrate what they've learned. And those show what you know activities are accompanied by checklists, which provide facilitators opportunities to informally assess kids' learning and identify any topics or vocabulary they might need to know before moving on. So it's just kind of an informal assessment. To give you an idea of what the activities actually look like, we thought we would take this opportunity to spotlight a few, one from each of those grade bands I talked about. The first is from K1. It's called Slow Breathing Soup, and it's from Unit 2, Understanding Emotions. In this activity, kids draw a soup of things that help them feel calm and relaxed, and they practice slow breathing, again, to practice getting into that state. In the grade 2-3 growth mindset and goal setting unit, the activity Oodles of Doodles guides kids through creating drawings using basic shapes and emphasizes how attention and practice helps them to improve. In the grade 4-5 empathy and kindness unit, there's an activity called Texting Trouble. And this activity presents kids with a scenario in which they receive somewhat terse and vague text messages from a friend. And then kids consider their friend's perspective and decide the best way to respond. This activity in particular we're excited about. We got a lot of really great positive feedback from it because we heard from so many people, this is just so relevant to kids' lives and the challenges that they face. I saw in the chat box earlier, lots of folks said that it was tough for kids to understand nonverbal communication. Well, now in an increasingly digital space, we kind of have to read between the lines and practice perspective taking skills and think about, okay, well, I don't really have as much information as I would like. So what might this person be thinking? What might be going on in their life? And how can I show empathy and kindness as I respond to whatever the situation is? Hopefully that gives you a taste of what the activities look like. We know that it's really important to support staff when implementing a new program. To help you do that, we've included tools and resources for program implementation, training, and facilitation to make sure everyone at your site, regardless of their level of experience, is really set up for success as they start to deliver this program. For facilitators, we've embedded tips and activities right in the activity, so you can see some call-outs in this illustration here. This is from some of the training materials. Those tips are designed to help engage kids using attention signals and transitions, and also to support cultural responsiveness and group management. The program also includes a formal kind of kickoff style program training, which provides a high-level orientation around what social emotional learning is and why it's important in out-of-school time settings. That orientation is designed to be engaging, it involves active learning, and ensures site staff are equipped to use the program. The training also introduces the program structure, activity structure, and strategies for using the program effectively, including how to respond to disclosures of abuse and neglect, which, unfortunately, do happen in just about any education setting. A site leader can present that training in 1 3-hour time block, or if they need to be a little bit more flexible with their time, they can choose to divide the training into 3 different time blocks of about 45 to 60 minutes per session. In addition to the training, you'll have access to resources like a sample implementation schedule, family letters in both Spanish and English, guidance around how to adapt the program to fit your site's needs, and a training prep guide to ensure that those who lead staff training are really set up for success and well prepared before they do so. So as I mentioned previously, Second Step Out of School Time can be used in a variety of before and after school settings, whether you're operating in a school or at an external site, or if your kids get an SEL program in school or not. The program is really built to be flexible to the diverse out of school time field. Again, there are 3 grade bands, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know that not every site divides their group into these grade bands, but we organized the content in this way so that it can support SEL at 3 different developmental levels. If your site groups kids differently, for example, if you group kids into K through 3, we recommend that you look across multiple grade bands, the content. So if you had kids in K3, you would look at K1 and 2, 3 content. And then, you know your community and you know your kids best. And we just recommend that you make an informed decision about one of those grade levels to use and stick with that so that kids are getting exposed to the sequencing as it was designed. In our field test, we found that the activities work well for groups with about 10 to 15 kids. But again, we know that this is not always the case, and we've included guidance in the program to adapt the program to various group sizes. In terms of scheduling, I know that this came up in the chat. We recommend that you set aside 20 minutes 3 times a week for second step activities. Just because following that schedule and the regularity there really helps social emotional learning to become part of the fabric of your site, right? Kids and adults are regularly revisiting concepts and language, and it doesn't just become like second step time. It gets interwoven into what you do and becomes part of your site culture. That said, again, we know that that's not always possible in every site's schedule. So we have included alternative schedules and recommendations for sites that can only use the program 1 or 2 days per week. So Jen mentioned our current context at the beginning of the presentation, and it's important to acknowledge that. And we've thought quite a bit about what that means for folks in the out-of-school time field and second step out-of-school time and what that will look like. So because the program was designed for traditional in-person use, there will be some adaptations to fit socially distanced or remote environments. But if facilitators really anchor those adaptations in 6 priorities that emerge from research and practice, we're confident that the activities can support kids' SEL in both of those arrangements, right? Or in person. Some people are still using traditional programming, which is fine. Very few, if any, adaptations required. So first, focus on relationship building. This shines through in research. If you're a practitioner, you probably already know this, but relationships are the heart and soul of all learning. And, we all know that kids and adults alike need connections now, maybe more than ever. Second, set norms and rules for the new environment. Whatever your setup is, there's likely some unfamiliar element. Most facilitators will already set community norms, but it will be useful to specifically set norms around how to act in this new environment. Third, prepare. Again, preparation is important in almost any education environment, but as you walk into what is potentially an unfamiliar environment, it can be really useful to think through the activities step by step, and you might even consider practicing them with a friend or family member before you lead a group of kids with them. Fourth, identify the objective and adapt around it. So it can be easy to kind of get caught up in adjusting for logistics and lose sight of the SEL goal. So the program identifies and clearly states the objective in each activity. So as you adapt for a socially distanced or remote environment, it will be useful to just circle back to that objective after you're done making those adaptations and say, okay, but am I really getting at the goal and the purpose of this activity? Fifth, use new opportunities. There really are some new opportunities in the world right now, and you can push kids' creativity and give them leadership roles in this new environment, maybe in ways that you haven't been able to in the past. For folks using the program remotely, you can think about what doors digital tools open. So it's really yours to identify those opportunities and leverage them. 6, use your community to learn and improve. This is last, but it's certainly not least. Those in your community really know their experience best. Ask your kids, ask families in your community and out of school time and school-based educators about their experiences, their needs, and what they've learned in the last few months. Asking these questions can really help you serve your community, but it can also strengthen your relationships with those individuals. So it's just a win-win through and through. So now I'll hand it back to Jen, who will discuss other resources from Committee for Children to support SEL in these times.
Thank you, Tricia. That was so much information. I just will remind everybody that we will be sending a copy of this presentation out to you, and then we'll have a link to this recording that'll come to you in the next few days. So you'll have all of that information that Tricia just described about the program, and you'll have access to this presentation so you could share it. I hope you do, to other folks that are doing this work that might be interested or would like to connect with us. So speaking of connecting with us, I do want to just really encourage you to look at the things that we have really taken the time and resources and energy to create in this time. Just like a lot of other organizations, we really took a pivot and directed a lot of our energy toward making sure you have what you need during a time that's just full of different types of challenges. So while we've created a lot of different resources that are aimed towards school-based programming in elementary schools and middle schools and pre-K programs, we do have some resources I wanted to highlight here that I thought might be useful for this group. Where you can find all of the resources is on our COVID-19 resources page. It's just secondstep.org/COVID-19 support. And I think Miriam will put that link in the chat box for you. But right there on that page is a long list of different things that you can find that might help you during this time. So a few I wanted to highlight is that we are, I mentioned at the beginning, we are going to be releasing our SEL for adults in January or in 2021. We don't actually know the date yet. But before that, we are releasing our resiliency module, Resilience in Crisis. It's an online training for adults, plus some free K-12 activities. This is just one of the modules for the program that you'll have access to from August through December. And this is really all of the competencies that we are teaching children, of really trying to fill those up in ourselves, and then also to really be able to feel good and solidly able to teach SEL in our settings as well. One thing I'm really excited, and I hope you will definitely check out, just from the people that are on today, those who told us the work you're doing, please go to our Imagine Neighborhood podcast. It is a new podcast we had been developing before the pandemic emerged, but it has been extremely helpful for families with children age 4 to 9. Season 1 is available now, and Season 2 is coming soon. And it does directly address some of the really big feelings and things that kids are going through right now. So that's another option, especially if you're doing some remote and you're trying to push some things out to families to help. I know that was another concern from our chat box, of really trying to communicate with families and helping families to support that learning while at home. And a fun way to do that would be through this podcast. We also are offering some expanded virtual PDs, opportunities, professional development for staff, some live and on-demand webinars in a variety of topics, including trauma-sensitive practices and remote learning. We just did that one yesterday, but it will be on the calendar in September as well as other robust bullying prevention, child protection trainings that we've made publicly available. So we've got lots for you to explore, again, just going to that COVID-19 resources page. And then last two, we've got an anti-racism guide to the Second Step family of programs and how to use the outside resources to support SEL programming. That's coming soon. We'll be partnering with Teaching Tolerance to help us with that, as they are experts that can help us to make sure we're guiding you in a way that is productive and useful and doable for you. And the last one is our Mind Yeti program. It is a mindfulness program with sessions that are audio, a little video, but really intended to help kids focus and to calm and be kind of focused in on their own bodies and how they're feeling, and really trying to help build that capacity for calm and focused ways of being in this world right now. We absolutely could all use that, I think. So please go to the COVID-19 resources page and you'll find all of these wonderful things and a lot more that are all free and available to anyone. Okay, so we've come to the last part. I just wanted to say, thank you so much for being here today. There's so much information flying around right now that I'm grateful that you've taken the time to learn more about this new program and how you might support kids in your out-of-school time settings this coming school year. So just what's next? Well, we hope that you'll take a closer look at the program. So I'd love for you to go to secondstep.org. And you'll find all of our different programs. You'll find the out-of-school time page. The program itself is starting at $4.99 for a set with all 3 grade bands. So you'll have coverage for K through 5 with that $4.99 price. If you are a National After School Association member, you can actually receive a $50 discount through the NAA Marketplace. So I hope that you will, if you are, that you will take advantage of that. These links are live on this slide. So once you get your follow-up, you'll have those links handy. And then just to learn more about the program, please download a sample activity, take a look at the program's scope and sequence more closely, read the research summary, especially if you are taking this forward to leadership and you need some resources to help make that decision. Please do also get in touch with us. We are happy to help at any time with making sure you have what you need to advocate for bringing social emotional learning to your program. So with that, I'm just going to take a look and see if we've got some questions for Trisha and see. So let me see. Okay, here's one. Are the out-of-school time activities designed to be used remotely or in the classroom? So I think, Trisha, you answered this, but maybe you can kind of explain the difference there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they were designed for in-person use, but those 6 kind of high-level guiding principles might help you adapt. And I don't know what your role is in the out-of-school time or school-based setting, but it might be useful if you are in a leadership position to work with your facilitators to think about creative ways to adapt the activities as for remote learning if that's your situation right now. I will say that in the program training, we have these 6 guiding principles much more fleshed out and have given specific examples, and we include a sample activity where we call out how we would recommend adapting the activity for a socially distanced and a remote environment. So we have one activity for a socially distanced adaptation and one for a remote adaptation.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. I do have another question here that's saying, what if their program has pre-K as well? I know when I was working in programs, it was always hard when you have pre-K involved. It is another set of sort of things you need to worry about and to address, and then how do you sort of fit that into your group? In this case, we don't have lessons designed for pre-K, so the question is, would you just recommend using the K1, and would there be any adaptations you would recommend if that's the case?
If you have had pre-K kids for a while, you probably know where they are developmentally, right? And so if they're kind of closer to kindergarten or if they're closer to, what we would think of as a more early learning program. And Second Step does have an early learning program, so you might look to that as well. But the K1 grade band was designed to really reach all kindergartners. So if your kids are getting pretty close to kindergarten or at kind of the upper end of that spectrum, I don't have too many concerns.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I think we really just have to rely sometimes on that gut feeling of where your kids are at and knowing what they can handle. Obviously, there's a little trial and error involved too. So if you ever want to talk some of that through, you're always welcome to give us a call. Our support staff are very well versed in all of the programming, but also just in working with kids in schools for many years. So let's see if there's anything else. It looks like there's a question about if we will have some resources, a help sheet or something to use if we'd like to write a grant to purchase the new format for Second Step. And the answer is yes, that we are always happy to help with that. I don't know if we'll have the sheet you might be thinking about, but we can definitely help you with those questions and some of the wording you might need. The review of research will probably have some really good tidbits that you can put in there, but we're always happy to help and also really interested in what those grants are too, because we'd love to really keep track of that if we can, so that we can make sure we're providing resources. If there are a lot of programs out there trying to get grants, then we can create things that would help with that.
Yeah, and just to say a little bit more, Jen's team is versed in doing that and has experience doing that with the K-5 program. So, she's not just being humble. They know what they're doing on this front.
That's nice. Thank you. So I think the last thing was just talking about, actually, I'm going to look in the Q&A, make sure there's nothing there too. Yeah, looks like maybe just thinking about the relationship building. Wondering if there are if they would know through the scope and sequence, if there would be specific things they can do for relationship building if they wanted to hone in on that. I don't think we have a separate list for that, but what would you recommend if they're trying to pinpoint those?
So the whole first unit in the program is focused on relationship building. So, we saw the importance of relationship build. I mean, we know the importance for all learning, but we saw how central it is to the work of out of school time spaces very, very early on. And that's actually something that's different in the scope and sequence for the K-5 program and the out of school time program that, we're talking about here, is that we have that relationship building in second step out of school time, whereas many educators felt like either it didn't fit or they were already doing this work with their kids. So that whole unit will give a lot of concrete strategies around how to build those relationships. And some of that will need some translation if you're working remotely with kids. But actually, I was just looking through that unit yesterday, and I feel like there are a lot of things that are translatable. And, checking in with kids, like, how are you doing? I want to check and make sure that you're okay. I am okay. Having those conversations, whether it's with the full group or, reaching out to families, now more than ever, I think that's the sort of thing that is really critical and could lay a foundation for even that first unit. If you have those, like, how are you? I acknowledge this is a hard time. I am okay conversations, and just open that door to being really authentic with kids and acknowledging it can be a tough time.
That is very well said, and I agree 100%. And I think that most people are really, from what I'm hearing, they are really thinking about that relationship building, because now more than ever, it seems it's just important for all of us we've realized maybe how important it is to connect with each other when we were in a time where it's harder to do that. So the last thing I have is a question actually about the free SEL for adults program that is coming for the resilience module. We are just releasing that one module. It's very relevant for the time we're in right now. And it's really a field test in a way to just make sure we are on track for the rest of the program that will launch in 2021. If you would like more information about it, you can get there from the COVID-19 resources page. But Miriam may also be able to just go ahead and put that link in the chat box too, where you can sign up for the field test. So August through December. And the question is really, how could a school use that with its staff virtually? And that's the beautiful thing, is that it's a digital program already. It was designed as short little modules that really are bite-sized and easy to go through on your own or as a group together. It's all digital, so it should be easy enough for you to do virtually as a staff. I think once you see the module, you'll know really instinctively how to use it and to help your staff to really, this is really about self-care and about staff feeling strong and supported to do this work during a time that's really quite challenging. So please go to a website and take a look at all of the great resources. We will also be providing the citations for today, the research that Tricia had mentioned. So if you want that, it will be in your follow-up. And the last thing I want to say is just that we really do like to talk with you. We are always here to help. You can call the phone number you see there. You can send an email. And especially if you are working on, you're on a task force or a committee or something where you're trying to coordinate maybe many different sites, bringing on resources, just give us a call and they'll connect you to the person who is the right person for your state. It might be me, you never know. And we would be glad to do a presentation like this, customized for your group, whichever amount of time you have available, which I know is usually not a lot. So whatever you need, please just always ask. As I said, if we don't have it, we could probably come up with it. And if you need something specific, it'd be good for us to know that. So with that, I just want to say thank you again for joining us today. It's very, very exciting to be launching a new program. I feel so grateful that I get to do that and to partner with Tricia and the others on this team that have created a beautiful and really engaging program that's quite special. So I say that with sort of tears in my eyes because I really am so proud of the work we're doing, and I hope that it will be helpful for all of you. Would you like to say goodbye, Tricia?
Well, gosh, I feel like I couldn't end on a better note, Jen. But no, thank you all for joining and for giving us your attention and contributing via the chat. And we do hope to hear from you soon.
Great. Wonderful. Well, you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Come back and visit us for another webinar. We have a lot of different topics, so go back to where you registered for this one. And Miriam, would you like to say goodbye as well?
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for keeping the chat box active and engaging today.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, you'll get your follow-up in the next few days. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.